Here we go. And I think we're live. G'day everyone. Good to see you all again. I haven't been live at all this week, so it's great to actually see you all live today again. This is just in pre-show time. If you don't want to watch this, just skip ahead. There will be a timeline underneath, so you don't have to watch all of this. But I'm going to spend, even though it says 10 o'clock, I'm going to spend 5 minutes or so just chatting to everyone. Let people know that we're live. So if you can, love it if you could give some thumbs up. And let's see who is here today. So who have we got? Eli's here. Daniel, say no way he's waiting. David has obviously gone to bed. Predicting the a7S3 is next. I'm going to talk about that as the first story today. Daniel also said, but I really hope it's the A9 Mark II with 36 megapixel or 42 megapixel. The 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi hints to this, since both need that for better streaming. Jamie said, good morning everyone, as well. I say A7S Mark IV. Jamie, at the start of 2020. Charles says A7S3, A7S4 is the next high-end camera. There is also going to be an entry-level consumer-grade full-frame sensor detachable lens camera released as well. Haas is here as well. Gilbert is also here. Boy, you're up nice and late, Gilbert. Matthew said, hi David, looking forward to watching later. Any new Sony cameras on the way? Still hoping for an a7000. Johnson City says the a7 II is their entry-level full frame. Sony doesn't try to copy Canon. It's most likely an a6700 or 7000. Eddie says A7S with 8K video. Wow, Eddie. You're certainly jumping out there. Sniper says, using a7R3 and a7 III, I'm tempted with the Canon RF glass. I've got some cash saved for Canon's next RF Pro body, unless Sony brings out something serious as well. A7R Mark IV files too big with no megapixel size option here. It is a pity they don't give us that option to down-res those files, and I don't understand why Sony don't do that. What else have we got? Johnson City said, I agree, 42 megapixel is plenty for real estate. Casper's here as well. What else have we got? Johnson City says, Canon better get back to putting 4K 24 and dual pixel back in their cameras quick. We'll talk all about this soon. Stephen's here as well. I get to pick up my new 85 1.4. Wow, lovely, Michael. Stephen, I mean, you'll love it. Great lens. Casper says, sounds nice. He's talking to someone else. What else have we got? Stephen Gray, 10 a.m. here in Australia. Yep, 10 a.m., which is our usual time here. Ben says a7 IV would be nice. Well, you never know, Ben, do you? You don't know what is going to happen after Sony released that other camera so quickly when we thought it wasn't needed. As well, so it is going to be interesting to see what they release. B&B Films says Sony a7S3 6K 30 frames per second full frame. G'day Leslie, how are you? Looking forward to your show always. Bought the Tamron 28 to 75. You're going to love that, Leslie. That's such a good lens. Zentrial says hi from Cali. Looking forward to the a7 IV or a Mini A9. A7000. G'day, Photomiac. Tony Bangus is also saying hi, guys, as well. Like I said, I'm giving this a few minutes, guys, for everyone to pop on board because it always takes a little bit for everyone to hop on. Appreciate it, guys, if you can give us a thumbs up. We have over 100 watching now. Please give me a thumbs up. It does help support the channel. Stephen says, get the 35. It's more versatile. 8 p.m. in the USA. That'd be New York time, wouldn't it? Creative Films. Tony's just saying hi as well. Photomex said, just got here, already got to deal with Crapster's disrespectful nature. I know. How do you put up with him, Photomex? I just don't understand. Casper's just got my enemy. I love it. Gene says, hello from Calgary, Canada. Got the 85 1.4 Samyang. I might sell the 85 1.8 soon. So have you been happy with it, Gene? It seems like it's really good. You know, the interesting thing is I've got to take because I only had this on loan, the 17 to 28. I've got to take this back on next Tuesday. I probably will get it eventually. I love it that much. But I'm actually getting a Nikon next week off the company because they want me to review the Tamron, the 35 1.4, which apparently is meant to be Tamron's best lens. It's meant to be stunning. So I think I'm going to be getting a couple of lenses off them, which is the Tamron 35 1.4. And also there was another lens as well, which is a zoom lens. I can't remember. It was something up to 105, but I'm going to be getting those. So it looks like I'll be going back to a digital SLR to do the reviews. And I'm a bit excited because I can't wait to try it again. But I am looking forward to trying that Tamron 35 1.4 lens out. Because I'm hoping that comes to Sony eventually. And so it'll be a great one to test. Also, it's something a bit different. Also looking to, look at the so-called color science differences and see if I notice any difference, that's going on there. So it's going to be really interesting. I have got a review coming up of this Tamron. If you noticed yesterday, I put up a review of the... it's in the other room, actually. A small gimbal with the Osmo action on it. I've done this review in the same place, but the footage obviously should be stunning with this lens because it's full frame, and I've shot it in 4K using the AK2000, that other gimbal that I recently got as well. So stay tuned for that. I'll probably post that maybe late today, but it may be tomorrow. And it's the first time I've done landscape, and I'll show you that in a minute because as soon as we start the show, I'll show you one of the images that I grabbed from it. It's lovely. Let me just go back into here. Tim said, went to Sony Day in Melbourne yesterday. Tried out, where were we? Went to yesterday, enjoyed trying out a ton of lenses, but getting the 200 to 600. Yeah, that does seem like it's going to be a fantastic all-round purpose lens if you want to get something that's not... I mean, it's still expensive, but it's not ridiculously priced if you want the reach. I don't know whether I'll ever get it because I just don't shoot in that focal range, but anyway, you never know. Zoet, g'day. Even if it's an a7000, I'm saying AK now, a7000 and 4K 60, sure, a lot of people will be happy, but waiting for the next high-end mirrorless camera. Not if I go... if not, I go for the Panasonic. Yeah, I know. The thing is, a lot of people are getting sick of waiting, and I think some people will move over. So it will cost Sony some sales if they don't release something reasonably soon. I'll talk about that soon, though. David says... good morning, love the show. Thank you so much, Davey. G'day, Oreo. Good to see you in here as well. Gilbert says, I love to see you try the Samyang 85 and 45. Yeah, one day perhaps. I just don't have anyone that is willing to lend me those lenses, Gilbert. Obviously, I'll get Sigma, and I will be looking at the new Sigma lenses eventually, hopefully fairly soon. But I'm certainly looking forward to trying that Tamron 35 1.4, which is meant to be a stunning lens. So I'm going to be trying that. It just means I've got to shoot Nikon again. But it'll be fun just to go back and try and remember the good old days. Michael's here as well. G'day, Michael. Nick Casper said Nikon is dead. I love it. Tony's saying hi as well. Steven's saying Pentax is dead. Cabrina says, well, hey, David, watching you from Kenya. Thanks for the great review, Father. Thanks so much, mate. And good, glad to see that you're watching me from over there. The notice just arrived. I know, Dana. How stupid is the system of notifying? It just doesn't work. I put that notice out an hour and a half ago, and you've just got it. We are going to start in a minute, guys. I'm just catching up with everyone here. Ciari, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Hey, David, I know you won't be able to pronounce my name. Is it Ciari? Ciare. It sounds like Kiri. Oh, it is the Irish for Kerry. Oh, interesting. Kerry is Ciara. Love your show. Thank you so much. Freeple says, I don't think Nikon is dead, and I think they will jump forward as well. Jim's just saying hello. G'day, Jim. Fatamix having a go back at Casper. I love it. Who else is here? Richard's saying hi as well. Stephen, I just released some energy out of my bum. That sounds lovely, Stephen. I love it. Bike Vision Scotland, good morning. Dion says good morning as well. G'day, Dion. Carl says, David, tried to get the A7 Mark IV for testing. I'm not sure whether they'd give it to me. Sony Australia never helped me out one little bit, unfortunately. So I don't know whether they'd get me that for testing or not. William says, I have a problem with my Sony a7rIV. The card will not lock. Oh, that's interesting. You may need to send it to Pro Support to get it checked out, William. Triple says, watching while driving. Just be safe, Triple. BM Film says, love my Nikon. I know it's going to be interesting to see if you guys can pick the difference in how the images look when I shoot the Nikon cameras. It's going to hit the camera and the lenses. It's going to be interesting. Please have Susie do a cameo during this show. I miss her. I know, she's in the back. Pedro, greetings from Portugal. Jean says, if trying out Samyang lenses, it will be good to have the docking station. Yeah, I know. A lot of people can't get that station, though, unfortunately. Dion says, the one copy of the A7R Mark IV is in Singapore now. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Dion. All right, so let's get started because I've got a couple of things to show you. Let me just bring up this thing. So let me put down here the time it is. It's 11:33. 11:50 I'll put by the time we get started. So let me come back here. Well, good morning everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. We got an exciting show today. There's some interesting stories about camera releases and things like that that I thought we'd go through all together. I have had pre-show. If you do want to skip, you can skip because I will put the timeline down below so you don't have to stick with the timeline. And, you know, skip to the story that you're interested in. That will be listed after the show is finished. So that's available there already. If you haven't joined our photography videography school, guys, please join it. We've got now over 5,000. I wanted to thank everyone for joining. It is called this. It's the family and the ampersand there. Family photography and videography school. Sorry, I should say. But it's just such a wonderful site. Obviously, I'm posting stuff all the time in here, but Aaron's also posting stuff. I'll just move it over so you can see it a little bit better. But we've got stacks of rumours that are always being shown on here. Stuff like that as well. We've got people sharing their videos, people sharing obviously their images for critiquing, things like that. We talk about Sony color science, things like that that's going on. So please join us. It's a fantastic site that really is very positive, and it's an extension to this channel, and it's growing very, very fast. Like I said, I've now got well over 5,000 members. So please join us there. It's a very safe site. And I absolutely love the interaction that's on there. We just don't put up with any of the crap that's in a lot of the other sites where, you know, a lot of things get a little bit out of hand. So please join us there if you can. I just shot yesterday or 2 days ago. I went out and shot with the Tamron 17-28. I did a test not long ago, if you remember, where I reviewed this for portraiture, which was in Melbourne. But I wanted to do one yesterday or the day before for actual landscape. And I have filmed it. Now, if you want to look at the location, if you want to check the last video that I've done, it shows the location in that. It's a gimbal review where I have an Osmo action on it. And it's similar footage, but just wait until you see the footage that's been captured from this. It's just stunning. I can't wait to show it. Now, I have tried, I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I have shot for the first time in HDL with this. So I'm hoping that the footage looks as beautiful as what it looked on the back of the camera. So stay tuned for that. I thought I'd give it a go shooting HDL because it was so stunning. But let me show you just as a sneak peek one of the images that I captured. Let me just open this up. Open. And let me just reduce this down. So this is going to be the location. Let me just move that. So this is the location where it was. So this was the shot that I did yesterday using the Tamron 17 to 28. And like I said, this has all been videoed. So stay tuned for this video that's going to come up. It'll probably be up maybe today, or it might be late or sometime tomorrow. It depends how long it takes me to put it up. But so this is the first image that I've done with landscape. Remember, I'm not a landscape shooter, so I'm not saying this is brilliant or anything. So it's just a sneak peek of the type of result that you're going to get from this 17mm. I mean, I love the image, but like I said, I can't really critique myself because I'm not a landscape shooter. But what a stunning location! I am so lucky that this is very, it's close to me, and I love going out there and doing stuff. I'm actually going to be doing a dancer in this similar location just around this area because it's full of waterfalls in the Otways. I'm going to be doing a dancer video coming up in the coming. I think I'm doing it in 2 weeks' time, so that's going to be fantastic. So I'm really excited about doing that. So if anyone is from Melbourne and they want to assist me for the day and they'd like to meet me out there, contact me and let me know because you're welcome to come along on the day. So anyway, so this is it. This was shot at f13, I think it was, and it was 1.3 seconds, I think, was the exposure that I actually used. I did use, it was misty and over and cloudy, but let me just close that for a second. I did use, for the first time, the Peter McKenna ND filters. Really nice too, how they come with the actual cap that you can put back on the top there. Fantastic. So that's what I used to get the exposure down to be so slow, obviously on a tripod as well. So stay tuned for that video anyway. I think it's going to be beautiful. I have to say that 17 to 28, I do still believe it's probably the best gimbal lens that you can buy for Sony at the moment, due to the fact that it's so light. I mean, it is ridiculously light. It's quite small, and you have a nice focal range. Like the 17mm is really nice as a wide focal range for putting it on a gimbal. And I did, like I said, use that Fiotech, the AK2000 gimbal, which worked fantastic, really great with it. So stay tuned for that video anyway. But I do think if you're a videographer, that lens it cannot be matched, I don't think, on a gimbal. It's just stunning. So before we start the show, let me just catch up with everyone, what everyone's saying. And then we'll start the show. Like I said, if you don't want to watch this, you can skip down in those, because I'll put the timeline in the link below. So who else has popped in? So we've got Gerald has also popped in. Hi, Gerald. What else? Andre's here as well. Fatamix said, oh, they're still stirring each other. Jim said the show begins. David said, I joined, great site, David. I thank you so much, David. It is a wonderful site, that photography videography school. Jim said, very nice Beetle, VW Beetle. Yeah, that's in that thing there, wasn't it? In the photography videography school. Video autofocus sucks on the Nikon though. Well, I'm not going to be doing video, Stephen. I think it'll be just stills. I think that's what I'll be probably just doing. Michael said, David, let me know what you think about the Nikon. Yeah, I will, Michael. I'm excited to try that lens though, because I do believe that Tamron lens is meant to be really outstanding. So I am excited about trying that Tamron 35 1.4 because I've got a feeling it may end up coming to Sony with a bit of luck. Aaron's here. G'day, Aaron. Nice to see you in here. We'll be back with Aaron next week on Wednesday, Melbourne time, Tuesday, US time. What else have we got? Sammy Photography said, just got a notification. Yeah, I know. It's doing some crazy things. Oh, you can't see the landscape image? Ugh. Hang on, let me come back. I'll show it again. Let me come back. Where are we? I'll just reduce that down. Sorry, guys, that you couldn't see that. All right, so there it is. So hopefully you can see it now. So this is the landscape image. Sorry, I thought I'd actually showed it. Yeah, this is in a place called Hopetown Falls. It's just gorgeous. You know, the typical sort of rainforest that we have here in Melbourne, Australia, with all the beautiful tree ferns. And at the moment, being winter, there's plenty of water that's flowing through this area. It's really misty, mystical, almost fairy-like in its outlook. And like I said, I used the 17 to 28 on this. On a tripod. It was using my Mi Photo, so it wasn't a very stable tripod. I mean, there is movement in the ferns because I've shot at 1.3 seconds, and you can't avoid that, I suppose, unless you did a HDR or something. But I wanted to put this up exactly as it was shot. So, you know, there is a little bit of movement in the ferns and stuff, but you can't avoid that. It's dead sharp if you look at the rocks and stuff which haven't moved. But I just love it. Like I said, just wait for the video on this. This will be coming up very, very soon. And I've got other images I took on the day as well. But I wanted to really concentrate just how beautiful this is on video. So that is that. So let me come back to the question. So hopefully you've seen it now. Yeah, I don't know why that was doing that. That's a bit weird. Wait, did you hear you just say you're trying Nikon? Yeah, I am, Sammy. Look, I'm only trying it for to review those Tamron lenses, so stay tuned for that. I am looking forward to trying it again, though, so it'll be something a little bit different to me. I always like to be challenged a little bit, so I am looking forward to that. Dion says, I think that it is only Photomiak and Casper turn up. Yeah, I know, they're shocking, those two. So I did bring up the image again. Dave, you're going to try the a7rIV. Well, hopefully if I can get one, David. Like I said, Sony Australia don't really look after me in that regard, which I don't understand because everywhere else they seem to do that, but here in Australia, I don't know why. I've asked them before and I never hear back from them, so it's a bit disappointing because I do sell an awful lot of gear for Sony, so it is a little bit disappointing that they don't support me at all. Let's have a look. Nikon is dead. Casper said, Brett said, very nice image, mate. Thank you so much, Brett. Fruple said, yes, very nice image. Adam Masker said, picture is beautiful. Thank you so much. Oreo said, is that paradise? I know. How stunning is it, Oreo? I am so lucky to live in, I'm going to show you again because it is just such a beautiful country. We seriously live in one of the most beautiful countries in the world here. You know, and when you think that this is near my home, you know, it's just gorgeous. And there's a few of these that there's heaps of these waterfalls in there. That's just one that I went to shoot on that day. But, you know, it's just stunning, basically untouched. It's just gorgeous. And like I said, I'm very lucky that I've got something like that so close. But just wait till you see the video. I just hope because it's shot in HLG that I can process it okay and I've exposed it and everything okay. So we're going to have to wait and see. Adam said, beautiful photo. David said, no, pick Dave, wow. Love the blur. I do waterfalls so beautiful. Man, that's creative. Thank you so much, Photomiak. David said, oh my God, great. Awesome shot. Thank you so much. Looks like Jersey. Stephen said, professionals use manual and autofocus. What else? Photomiak says, the creative community sure has become lazy in the past few years. No wonder everyone's work looks the same. And you know what? I might talk about that one day, Photomiak, as well, because it possibly is quite true. Well, I do think it is a bit true that nothing new has seemed to have come out in the looks and things like that. But I might talk about that in another thing coming up. Raymond said he received his 24mm 1.4 GM. Fantastic. You'll love that lens. Absolutely adore this lens. It is brilliant. Before I forget, I have got something incredibly exciting to talk to you about in around about 2.5 weeks. I can't discuss it at the moment because I'm not allowed to, but there is something really cool coming up, so stay tuned. I just wanted to say, ooh, there's something exciting coming up. Brett said, movement in the leaves gives you motion the same as the water moves too. Yeah, and there's nothing I could do about it, Brett. I mean, look, you can combine multiple images, take one static shot and then combine them as a composite, but I didn't want that. I wanted that image to be exactly as it is. So, you know, it doesn't bother me in that degree at all. Sammy said, I agree, you do a ton for Sony users. They should at least give you some gear to test instead of a lot of phonies. Well, that's the thing, Sam. I just don't understand why they don't. I've asked them before and I can never get anything from them. It's frustrating that they won't lend me anything to even review, whereas I've got Tamron lending me stuff. I've got a Sigma gear that's being lent to me. All this other stuff is being sent to me and given to me, but Sony, for some reason, will not help me at all. And it is frustrating because I'd love to review it for you guys as well. I mean, I have a big audience now. I don't know why they won't. It's just a bit crazy. Dion, how was the climb back out? It was not too bad, Dion. Oh, I did take a little bit of time going up those stairs. It was pretty steep stairs going up, that's for sure there. I was a bit puffed because I had a little bit of gear on my back. But there's another location which I'll show you in the video that hasn't got stairs and stuff. Just wait till you see the video. It's stunning. Gerald says, we can't see you. Just a screenshot. Oops. There we go. Thank you, Gerald. Nice desktop, David. I love it. All right, guys, we better start because I've been on 26 minutes already. People are going to be abusing me and carrying on. So let's go to this first story. What are we on? 2608. 2608. All right. So let's get started. Let's get this party started. Now, this is quite interesting. I just need to move this over so we can have a talk about this. This is really interesting because there's another announcement coming up. Well, we think it will be announced, but they've announced another code. And it's this code here, which is saying WW942051. And the interesting thing is they're saying here that it's going to have a 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So this is telling you that it's probably going to be a more high-ended camera. And this is what I think it's going to be. Now, I've got a tip about what I think this will be in a minute, and I'll talk to you about this. But it says, today Sony registered a new camera with the code WW942051 in Asia. We can pretty safely say that this is a new high-end EMAC camera because the camera features the same 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi. Now, why this is interesting is because we only had one so far that was 5.8 gigahertz, any one of the cameras, and that turned out to be obviously the A7R Mark IV. So this you would tend to think that because this also has the Wi-Fi, I was getting worried because it was the only one that had Wi-Fi listed in the as part of that camera code. And once that had gone, then I was wondering what on earth is going to happen because I thought then it might only be lower end models like the RX models and things like that. So it looks like we've got another one now that has come through that has 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So this could really only be, well, we think 3 cameras. Looking at this, it could be the A7S III or whatever that camera is named as. It could also be the Sony A9 II, and it may also be the Sony a6-700. And he's saying his personal opinion is it's the a6-700 as well. And I think that's probably right. That I think it may be the a7000 or whatever that camera is going to be. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But Sony now has a total of 3 new cameras that will be announced in August to September. 2 of them should be entry-level cameras, so we'll probably get an RX10, something like that, or an a5100 successor. I think we're going to get an RX10 replacement and a high-end camera. It says they're extremely exciting time. Sometime in August or September, stay tuned. So looking at this, I don't think it'll be the A9 II yet. We haven't even got the firmware for the A9 out yet either. Remember, that's meant to be sometime in the next month or 6 weeks away. In Australia, we count summer as or winter as finishing in September. So for us, summer ends on the 1st of September. I think in the US, I'm not sure whether you count it by the dates or you count it by that equinox or whatever it is. I'm not sure, which will be mid-September. But you would think that Sony would have released the A9 II firmware before another A9 II could come out. That may not be the case, but I'm talking from the aspect of what do we really need from Sony at the moment. We don't need an A9 II at the moment because the A9 is still the best camera of its kind that's available in the marketplace at this time. Now, I do believe we're going to get one for the Olympics, but that could easily be much later this year or early next year for the A9 II. Remember, the Olympics are only going to, I think in June or something, aren't they? Next year, June or July. So we've got plenty of time if they release the camera early next year. The number one thing we need in cameras at the moment is something with higher video specs. So I don't think it'll be the A7S III yet, because I don't think they're ready to release that yet. There's clearly been no rumors or anything in that regard. And I still think that they're probably trying to overcome some issues with that camera, like heat, etc., and things like that. And they did make that comment that they were going to bring out something that was well, basically better than anything, much more than what you would expect Sony to release. And so they did make that statement. And so I think that probably is still going to be a little bit more down the track. So I think that this next camera that comes out, and it makes sense to me because they were talking about a high-end APS-C camera. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a high-end APS-C camera that it also has that 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It makes sense to me because if they are going to release a high-end A7000 that again could be a mini A9, I don't think the RX is going to be the mini A9. I think it's probably going to be the A7000, whatever that's going to be, because it'll be a much better sensor, it'll be much better in low light, you'll have much better video and things like that. So I've got a feeling that I think it's going to be an A7000 or an A6500 replacement. That's what I think it could be. The only other camera I think it could be will be an A9 II. I don't think it will be an A7S III. But I definitely believe that we need the video side for this first. So I'm hoping that I'm correct. I'm hoping it's an A7000. I'm hoping this will tide us over. And it may shut people up. Well, it certainly would shut me up if they released an A7000 that had 4K 60p. Even if it was for 5 minutes, I wouldn't care. But I think we're going to get an A7000 in a bigger body. I think it's going to be probably in the same body as what the A7R4 is, or it could even be the same body as the A7 III. And I think it will do 4K 60 and hopefully some better bit depths and 10-bit. Now, they will still have to leave off features, obviously, for the A7S, but that again will be the low light beast. It could have things like internal NDs possibly in there. They may give us 120 4K. They are saying they're going to exceed expectations. So there's still plenty of things that they can add. If they give us 4K 60, 10-bit in an A7000, remember it's still APS-C. If they could give us 4K 60 full frame, again, that's a massive leap compared to what they would give us with the A7000. So my tip is that this is going to be the A7000 that they're going to release. Let's open it up to the chat because I'd love to know what you guys are saying about this because I'm just curious to know. Fripple said, Australia has to be a relatively large market for cameras. Strange Sony is giving you the cold shoulder. Yeah, I don't know, Fripple. I don't know why Sony are not helping me. It's really frustrating. Because there's no one really like me in Australia that does what I do. I'm not big noting myself, but there's no one in Australia that does what I do for Sony. I know Mark Geller does, obviously, but he doesn't do the same as me, like producing videos like what I produce, which is live shoots and stuff like that. Mark Geller is a Sony ambassador, so he does a fantastic job for Sony. And he's a great guy, great bloke. Just like Dion. Dion is also an advocate here in Australia as well, so he's one of those Sony shooters. Dion's a lovely bloke as well, so I've got nothing against them, but I don't know why Sony Australia won't help me, and it's a bit frustrating because I'd love to have that gear that I could show for you guys to review because I do sell an awful lot of Sony gear, and it's a little bit frustrating. So I don't know. I'm sure if I was in America or anywhere else, they would be basically giving me stuff to review and do all that sort of stuff. But it just doesn't happen here in Australia, and I'm not sure why. A bit frustrating. Creative says, you've got to have over 100k on YouTube before Sony will even consider someone. Malay says, has anyone tried the 24G Master 1.4 on the crop sensor body? Yes, I have. Well, I've tried it on the Sony a7rIV and it works fantastic. Gives you about a 35mm focal length, which is beautiful. So yes, I've used that a lot, and I like it for video as well. So I have done that. So yeah, it's great. Unbox says, probably have to be a Sony Artesian to get anything. I'm not sure. Michael says, this may sound crazy, but if I could only keep one lens out of the 24 or the 17-28, it would be the Tamron, not because of the IQ, but because of the flexibility. And I can understand that, Michael. The 17-28 is an amazing lens. Fantastic, like I said, on a gimbal as well. Great for videography, it really is. Tim said we won a 5-hour show today. I love it. Dion says, I took Matt from Sydney Group down here, and it was quite a climb. Yeah, it certainly is, Dion. I know it's massive, that climb. It's not so bad when you're going down. It's worse when you go up. That's the problem. Sammy says, not only Australia, I believe David has a lot of followers in the US as well, like myself. Yeah, I've got more followers in the US than I have in Australia, and whether that's an issue, perhaps it is, because most of my subscribers are from the US. Jim said, you say, oh, that's just talking about what story we're up to. What else? Michael said there will be no A9 II this year, and I think I agree with you, Michael. I think that's probably going to be early next year. Like I said, we haven't even got that firmware update yet, and that's taking a bit of time. I'm wondering what Sony are doing about that firmware. Are they going to give us some other special things? You know, are we potentially going to get the color change in the focusing? You know, things like that. And I mean, I'm just wondering what's happening with that. It's interesting that it's taking so long to come out. They're still on the timeline though, so you know that's interesting. I hope it's the a6700. Creative Film said, would be weird having a6700 and a7000 right after the a6400. Well, not really. They did do it when they released the a6300, remember? They released the a6500 not long after. And remember, they're totally different things, really, and they'll be priced differently. The a6400 hasn't got IBIS. So I think they'll have to bring out a camera that has IBIS in it, and that would be obviously the upgrade to the a6500. The a6500 is due for a replacement. It'll probably have the same sensor as the Fuji X-T3. Prasant says, morning from India. G'day, mate. How are you? Jim said, the new Sony camera will be 30 megapixel global shutter APS-C. Interesting. Studio 96 says, 9th of August, A9 firmware is coming. August the 9th, you're saying, Studio. Casper said, Sony LA Pro support is... yeah, you're still having a problem with that. It's good that the R4 was already announced because those 3 possible cameras are quite exciting. Probably an a7R5 with 100 megapixels. I love it. Oreo says, if overheating is still a problem like some have guessed, then the new camera might really be the A9 Mark II because it'd be the only one not needing top video features. I think, Oreo, though, I do believe that they could probably do it in an APS-C camera. If they put APS-C in the Sony size body, the larger body, not the small body, I think overheating wouldn't be an issue anymore. It's probably only an issue with the full frame cameras, that overheating issue. Remember, there's reasons why the Panasonic and stuff just don't overheat. It's a small body and it's a small sensor, the Micro Four Thirds sensor, so they don't have to worry about that aspect of it. Obviously, the bigger the body, they can put bigger heat sinks, there's better heat dissipation out of the camera, things like that, so they've probably got to get around that first. Johnson said, I don't know about the global shutter, Jim, but I would agree that the 30 megapixel new sensor they've been bragging about, I think there will be a bump in resolution, which in a way I'm a bit bummed about. I know a lot of you love resolution, but I'm like Manny Ordis. He sold his a7R3 and went to the a7 III because he loves the 24 megapixel file size so much. I'm exactly the same. That's all I need. I mean, if the A9 had that, I probably will buy an A9, but not till sometime next year. Because I'm still happy with what I've got. I need a video camera. But I am really happy with the a7 III file size, which is that 24 megapixel. I think you're right, though. I think that the A9 will probably go up to around 30 odd. Dion says there were no rumours about the a7 IV when it showed up. Exactly, Dion, you're right. Michael said the a700, then the a7S III. I agree, Michael, but I definitely think the next one is the a6700 or a7000, whatever they'd like to call it. Jim said, I think 30 megapixel is a smart move. Now, I suppose the other thing, though, it does give you, if you went to 30, it obviously gives you a better APS-C shooting mode on that camera. At the moment, it's a little bit low because you get about 11 megapixels, I think. So if it went to 30, what would you get, about 15 or something like that, which is quite workable. Where were we? Oh, hate that. It always jumps. I hope you're right about the a7000 with amazing video specs and a stacked sensor. The thing is that if they bring out an a7000, it will stop everyone from whinging, like me, for starters, who are waiting for a video camera. So it will tide you over until the a7S III is announced. And that's really, I think, all people are asking for. So if they could do that, that's why I think that's what this camera is going to be. Dana says, a7000, you sound just like you did last year. I know, Dana. Don't say that because I've been waiting so long for it to come out. I know. It's terrible. Gerald says, I think Sony will put the stacked sensor in the a7000 and it'll blow us away with 4K 60. I think we'll get 6K in the a7S model. Yeah, probably. We may even get 8K. We don't know. The thing is, if they're talking about beating expectations, Sony cannot just give us 4K 60p, can they? Because that's available now on most other cameras. So when that Sony manager came out and he said they want to beat expectations, it's got to be something really dramatic. So it has to be something like, a global shutter, or it has to be something like 4K 120p or 6K. It has to be something that is above what's already available. Otherwise, it's not above expectations. So it's going to be interesting to see what they say about that. Joe said, I bought the A6 this summer. I want the A7000. Me too. Internal NDs will not happen anytime soon. I hope it does. There's no reason why they couldn't do it. Dion says, they only gave Mark Gallo the camera for a few days and there is only ever one item and then that gets sent to New Zealand. Thanks, Dion. Andre says, I hope that this new registered camera is not the a7R5 because I just pre-ordered the a7R4. Eli says, move to America. Yep, I'm going to come out with you guys. I'm going to be there in February, though, with you guys. So I'm buying an a6 400 soon for my video cam, but I don't need much in video requirements. It's still a great video camera. I love it. The video footage out of that is beautiful. It just doesn't have 4K 60. Breadcrumb says it's because you voiced our concerns about 4K 60 APS-C and the A7S laugh out loud. Are you saying that's why Sony won't look after me? Who knows? Jenny says, do you think Sony will ever release the RX1R camera? It's such a nice camera. I'm not sure. I enjoyed it when I borrowed it from Sony, but I didn't use it much, but got some musicians. I'm not sure what that was talking about. Mad Photographer says, David, you need to sharpen your shilling skills before Sony will consider you. You might want to consult Peter McKinnon to find out how it's done. I love it. Keith said, perhaps they want to preserve your unbiased opinions. Maybe, Keith. What else have we got? RX1R with 61 megapixel sensor will be crazy. Iron DeBrown says, it has to be an A6 500 replacement because I planned to buy an XT3 this weekend. Yeah, probably. Are you going to buy one, Tony? Because that is a great camera. I must admit, I've been tempted sometimes. And if Sony don't do something soon, I may do something. Mad Photographer says, can't go wrong with a Fuji. Sammy said, I was wondering if an A9 update is taking so long because A9 is not due out for a while and they want to beef up the A9 for the Olympics. Well, we don't know, do we? We don't know what they're going to give us with that new A9 firmware update. It's going to be interesting. If it was only just for animal IAF and to put the intervalometer in, I would have expected it to be released by now because you wouldn't think that would be so hard to produce, but who knows? Sony a7S IV. Johnson said, with the $900 for a6-400 and the a7 III at $1,799, they could possibly sell the a7000 for $1,499 to come under the XT3 for an additional value. That's an interesting comment. I think that they'll probably price... I think the a7000, whatever that's going to be, will be priced about the same as the XT3. I think that's probably what will happen. Remember, there are big advantages even then if it's priced the same, because Sony is still the only company that you can have APS-C and full-frame lenses used on the one mount. And I know some people whinge about the Sony mount, but I think that's one of the best things about it. That you can use full-frame lenses on the a6-400 that I'm using now. And you can use APS-C lenses on the full-frame cameras, and they just go to APS-C, and there's no loss of focusing or anything. They just work like they're a native lens. So it's a brilliant strategy of Sony, and I'm glad they went down that avenue because it does make it so much easier for us. The other thing too is it stops them having to research two totally different systems, which is a massive benefit. They don't have to research or you know, put R&D into different lens mounts and all this other stuff now that Nikon and Canon have to do. And I think that's a great feature for Sony. I think it will be probably priced about the same price as the XT3. Frubel says, I'm wondering how much before the Summer Olympic Games Sony will finally release the A9 II. I have no idea how long professional will need the cameras. The thing is, you've got to understand that probably those people that are going to the Olympics are very, very short in number that would shoot Sony. There's not that many of them that will be at the Olympics. They will have the camera well before we even know about it. And that's what you've got to understand about that. Sony are not silly. They'll be putting that stuff out very, very... so they may even have it already. Let me just scroll down because someone gave a donation. I love it. Sammy said $5. Thank you so much, Sammy, towards moving you to the US. Perhaps when I come out in February, I'll stay. I shouldn't say that, or they won't let me in, will they? Where were we? Clyde says, g'day from Goa. G'day, Clyde. What else have we got? SB said, David, I love the detail on the high megapixel cameras, but I'm only looking to show my work on Instagram. And this is what you have to understand. Guys, let me just say this to you, and you know, I have to be complete, like I said, I'm always honest with you guys. There's no reason to buy the a7R IV if you are not into landscape. You heavily crop your images. You shoot wildlife where you might need that crop by shooting APS-C, or you say into architecture or something like that, or you're doing high-end studio work. If you are the type of shooter that I am, and you're shooting events, you're shooting just models, things like that, you're doing some video, there's no reason to go to the a7R IV. It's way over what you need. If you're just showing your work on Facebook, if you're just showing your work on Instagram, if you're just printing reasonable size prints, you don't need to go to the a7R IV. Let me show you this. All right, so 24 megapixels. Now, this is canvas, but this is the size. I could go bigger than this. I've done bigger than this. I've done way bigger than this with 24 megapixel file size. So guys, when you're dealing with print, you don't need images that are that big. So don't feel like you have to go and get a 60 megapixel camera to produce amazing images. You will produce amazing images with an a6-400 at 24 megapixels. You'll produce it with the a7 III at 24 megapixels. In fact, unless you have a lot of money, I would recommend the a7R3 at the moment, because the a7R3 is incredible. Like, I mean, for the price that you can get that camera, you can also go and then get a beautiful lens, or you could go and get the Tamron 17 to 28 and the 28 to 75 for what you're saving for that camera, and you'll get much better results by doing that. So unless you have a need for that, I'm not saying don't buy it if you have the need, obviously, but unless you have a need for 60 megapixels, don't buy that camera, buy something else. Buy the a7 III or buy the a7R3, which is still an amazing camera. It's just something to think about. I just had a donation too. Let me just check, because someone gave me something. Thank you so much, Leslie. $10. Wow. Thank you so much. So it is something to consider. So, you know, the other things too is you've got to understand it's going to be way more storage requirements. And it is going to be a massive amount of storage, because there isn't like the small RAW or the medium RAW that you've got with Canon cameras and stuff. You have to be more meticulous with your shooting, because 60 megapixel cameras can give you blurry images if you don't have good technique. And that's another thing that you do have to be careful of. Yes, I know it still has IBIS, but it still will have issues, and you will get images that are out of focus. I shouldn't say out of focus, they'll be blurry. So it is something you've got to consider. So unless you have a need for the R4, buy the R3 or buy an a7 III. Like I said, Manny Ortis put a video about this recently, talking about that he sold his a7R3 and bought an a7 III due to the fact that 24 megapixel was his perfect file size. So, you know, don't get the gas side of it and go out and get this camera unless you need it. That's all I want to say. Just be careful with all the hype. Where were we? Oh, marked it, I think. Where were we? Oh, there we go. But like I said, if you do, and this is where SB said, David, I love the high megapixel cameras, but I'm only looking to show off my work on Instagram. Yeah, if I were to post one image on Instagram from the a7 III and a second image from the a7R3, would the 60 mega 1 pixel make a difference? I think you're saying, and no, it won't. And that's the thing you've got to understand. Like, if you do want to crop in or use the camera in APS-C, fantastic, because you've got a decent APS-C crop in that camera. But you should be using the full frame camera. I mean, to buy the a7R4 and use it in crop mode, unless you're after reach, is silly. You know, the only reason why you would do that is if you wanted to shoot wildlife and you wanted to get that, you know, shooting a bird or something like that, or you're on safari and you wanted to bring that animal in. That's where you'd use crop mode in that. But if you've got a full frame camera, you should be using it in full frame. So don't buy a full frame camera thinking I'm going to use it in crop mode unless you have to. What else have we got?
Is that what you think?
Shush. That's Siri. SB says, image appear to have more detail than the a7 III, or would they appear to have the same amount? Now, if you're dealing with low-res files, you're not going to see any difference at all. You won't see any. Just like most prints, unless you go to a massive file size, you know, I'm talking huge, you won't see differences. I'm just trying to scroll through because otherwise we'll be here too long. JB said, the a6400 is still a fantastic camera. I was surprised it recorded for 7 hours straight without overheating. Yeah, it's great. I love my a6400. Jim said, Sony wants people with a head of hair. Do you think that's what it is, Jim? Do you think it's the hair that's the problem? I won't be sending me anything either. I love it. That's a crack up. 42 Pro said a7000 with 20 frames per second and 4K 60. Fingers crossed. Well, you just don't know, do you? So it says, imagine Sony will add 4K 60 via firmware to the A9. I don't think that's going to happen. We're still waiting on picture profiles, and that hasn't happened either. Thank you so much, Sammy, for the donation. Johnson says, I want the A9 release so I can get a used A9 for $2,700. Jim said, let's all thumble now. Thumbs up, 82. Oh, well, already. Wow, we've got 85 already. Thanks so much for the support, guys. Dion said, Sony has the broadcast rights to the 2020 Olympics. So I think there'll be a lot of Sonys there. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Dion. I didn't know that. Thank you so much for the donation, Leslie. Casper says... where were we? Oh, he's stirring about Nikon again. Studio says, hello from Spain. How are you? What we also need is better low light performance on the A7S III, of course. 4K 60 frames per second, please. You know, and it's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day too, and I'm not convinced now, and I'd love to know your opinion, and you can also leave it in the comment box down below, but do you really believe that we need much better low light now than what we've already got? Like, I've never now got into the stage where I thought, wow, I wish I had better low light in my cameras. As long as you expose right, but even for video, I tend to always add light because then it becomes a bit more interesting. And the high ISO that you can shoot now in cameras like the a7 III is unbelievable. You know, like you can really push that ISO to ridiculous levels and it's still really good. That's what hurt the a7S III, because that used to be the so-called high ISO beast, but the a7S III in most cases matches it. So it's interesting to see how much further we need to go. I mean, or are we coming up to a technology block where they can't push the ISOs much more than what they've already got? You know, have we reached that limit with what we've got with technology at the moment, where we can't get much better ISO? And that may be another thing with the a7S III, the limiting factor of, if they release it, is it going to be that much better in ISO than what we've already got? You know, and these are interesting questions that have to be answered. I'd love to know your opinion about that. Let's have a look. Jamie says, I used to work for a company that did large commercial printing. You would be surprised how big you can print. You can do while still having great quality. I know exactly, Jamie. I've used 24 megapixels. I used to use a Nikon D3S, and that was 12 megapixels. And I used to do massive size posters with that too. You would be surprised at how much you can move it for. DS, they've saying, talking about getting a green card in the US. Johnson said, yes, great value right now for the a7R III used 2000. I know. How good is that camera? I'm predicting that you're going to get that camera new for $2,000 by the end of the year. If you want to buy a brand new a7R III for 2000. I may even buy one at that price. If it gets down to that sort of money, I may buy an a7R III just to keep, in case if I want to use a high-res image for something. When it starts to get down to that value, it's hard to pass up. It's almost the same price now as buying an a7 III. It's incredible. Huss says, David, are you excited about the M5, M6 2 rumours? Will be amazing if it turns out true. I haven't seen those rumours yet, Haas, so that will be interesting to see. I'll have to look at that later. Henry said, has anyone else noticed that after the latest firmware updates, the a7 III and the a7R overheats much? No, I didn't notice that at all. But I'm in winter here, so it may be different, but someone else may be able to let us know. Brett says, damn autocorrect. I'm not sure what Brett said there. Oh, Brett said, totally agree, 24 megapixel is more than enough for large prints and digital viewing. You'll be amazed what details you see, you'll see in my work. I know exactly, 24 megapixels is amazing. And I think some people get a little bit carried away, Brett, and that's the thing, that they're going to buy the 60 megapixel camera when they don't need it. And that's where they may be better buying the a7R III or the a7 III. Like 24 megapixels is like ample for most things that you're doing. Fruple says, that's exactly the boat I'm in. I got the a7R2 when it hit 2000. I'm sure I wouldn't get half of that if I tried to sell it now, yeah. I'm lucky I got rid of my a7R2 a couple of months ago. And I got good money for it, so I'm glad I did that. Mike's saying, David is awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. Robert, g'day, Robert. How are you? Or it might be Rachel. Would you get the a7 IV if it's the same spec as the R4 with lower resolution, 24 to 30? That's interesting, Robert. I'm not sure. Look, I can tell you the next camera I buy, I won't be buying anything until they bring out a camera that has video side. So my next camera will be a video camera, whatever that will be. Hopefully the a7000 will be the next one that I purchase. And then sometime next year I may get the a7S. I think I'll probably get the A9 II when that's released. I'll probably wait. At the moment I've got the A9 II and I've got the a7 III and the a6400. So they're the cameras that I've got at the moment. Like I said, I want another video camera, and then potentially next year I will get a new A9 II to replace the A9 that I've got, and hopefully I may get an a7S III. I'm not sure if they released an amazing a7 IV, I may get that too. I mean, I'm not sure, and just sell the a7 III that I've got. I'm not quite sure what I would do. It would be interesting though, Robert, but it's certainly, like I said, the next one I'll be getting is something in the better video specs. Dion says, low light is a case of you don't know what you don't know. If you had better low light, you would use it and wonder why you didn't have it before. Yeah, it can be, Dion, but what I'm doing now, I'm tending to, say for instance, when I'm shooting videos and stuff like that, I will always tend to bring light in, and I find that looks much nicer than cranking up the ISO. It just doesn't look the same. I think you're better off to use additional lighting and then sort of manipulate the image that way. So even though I've got a camera that's capable of doing really high ISOs, I very rarely use it because I'm tending to sort of max out at 3200 or 6400. And then I'm, like I said, adding lighting in, and it's never becoming an issue. So yes, there might be a reason why you could be in a completely black area and you may want to use it. But for the way I shoot, doing events and stuff like that, I think the ISO has reached a point where it's good enough. But Dion, we all want different things. So yeah, you may have a need for that, so you might find that you want it. Oreo says, I don't wish for more low light performance, but I wish for better colors with high ISO. And you do have to watch that because, what's that? Okay. You do have to watch colors because if you, particularly if you're underexposed. Oreo, the trick too is really to nail your exposure. If you nail your exposure, the colors aren't too bad. But if you don't nail the exposures, colors can be affected quite drastically. Correct exposure on high ISOs is critical. You always be a fraction over or dead on. What else? I really hope the a700 or a7000 comes with 4K 60. I'm going to scroll down because we need to keep moving. I agree on 24 megapixel. I have some real nice prints, 20 by 30 based on 24 megapixel, and have no issues with high resolution quality prints. I've done 60-inch prints with 24 megapixel and they look beautiful. I've done that for wedding clients and they were stunning. Just to sort of say that, you know, it's can be possible. Elite says, work in the studio sometimes in very low light situation. The a6400 is the one I use most, very good, but over 800 ISO, not so good. The a7 III and the a7S III superior, but GH5S, I would say, is performing better. Why not a new RX10? I think that's going to come out. That is going to be one of the cameras they're going to announce shortly, Fody. That's about it. All right, let's go to the next one. Where are we? Let me just put in here. What do we want? God, we're an hour and 3 minutes already. 3:30. Okay, so let's go to the next story. I just wanted to show this. We're not going to spend too long on this, but you know, I just wanted to sort of bring this up to just sort of talk about the dynamic range comparison. This is the Fuji GFX100 versus the Sony a7R III. You might find that the R4 is going to be slightly better. I've got a feeling in my bones, I love to say that sometimes, I even though we keep hearing 15 stops and all this sort of stuff, I think when it all comes into being tested by independent people and all that sort of stuff out there, I think you're going to find that the dynamic range is going to be the same as, or very, very close to the a7R III. That's what I believe. But this is an interesting story, and I wanted to share this with you because I'm not sure people know, but I used to shoot medium format years ago when I was in the photography industry, before I went into teaching. I used to shoot Hasselblad and cameras like that. So I do understand the medium format sensors fairly well, and you can't beat physics. The difference here is the sensor size. So the actual sensor size is larger. So even though, and this is where you have to be very careful when you read numbers, because if you always read things like DxO, things like that, the numbers on paper can say one thing, but then when you get the image itself and start to manipulate it and use it as a user, they can be totally different to what the numbers are basically saying. So you've got to understand that aspect of it. So this review or this that came out talking about the dynamic range didn't surprise me really at all, because it's what I would have expected. I would have expected that the GFX100, would be slightly better, and even the Fujifilm GFX100 would be slightly better than what you're going to get in the A7 Mark R3 and the a7R4. It's just physics, and there's no way of getting around that physics. But a massive difference in cost too. I mean, you look at what you're going to be paying for the GFX100 as compared to what you're paying for the a7R4. Well, it's a massive difference. So you've got to look at it in terms like that. There is still a look that you get with medium format. You get better depth of field. It's a known fact, and there's a certain look that you get with it. And there's, the signal to noise ratio is going to be better on medium format. So we had a whole discussion about this in the photography and videography school, but this does not surprise me at all. Is it a big deal? No, because I'm never going to buy a GFX100. I mean, it's not something I'll ever buy because I don't want to get into medium format, because I don't want to shoot that type of system anymore. It's slower, more methodical, things like that. But, but if you're looking at it from a pure... if you're looking at it from the pure fact of quality, you're not going to beat medium format with a full frame camera. There's no way about it. But you're paying for that. You're paying for that ability. And if you're going to a high-end studio, you're going to find that oh, it hasn't come up. Let me just go here. Sorry about that. Thanks, Dion, for saying that. You're going to find that if you go to a high-end studio, you're going to find that they're going to be using medium format cameras. If you go to these high-end fashion studios, they're using medium format. And there's reasons why they do that. If you went in with a Sony or you went in with a Nikon or a Canon camera, you probably would be told you haven't got the shoot. I'm talking real high-end. I'm not talking about the lower-ended stuff. I'm talking about the real high-ended stuff. It's still going to be medium format. So, and particularly like if you say in the high-end car advertising where they do that sort of stuff, they'll be using these huge megapixel medium format cameras, not 100. I think they go up to 400 megapixel or something like that. I can't remember, but they're massive file sizes, and things like that. So this doesn't surprise me at all, but I just thought I'd share it with you because it's actually interesting that, it is coming out that way. And I would expect, and I can be proven wrong, but I would expect that the dynamic range of the a7R4, when it all comes out to it and it's measured and in use, it's probably going to be the same as the a7R3. But anyway, that's an interesting discussion. I will put that in the chat so you can have a look at that. In the description box down below. Have a read of it. Let me know what you think in the chat because I'd be curious to know what you think about that one. Let's go to the next story, which is 108. What are we on? 38, 40. So the next story is interesting though, because this is a new rumor that's coming out that Canon are they're saying that they're going to announce a camera that's going to have a 70 odd megapixel file size. So I think if this is the case, they're probably, just let me mark on here too so I know where we were. I think what's probably going to happen here is that they're going to probably try and answer the a7R4. Remember, they did have the high megapixel race one with their, I can't remember the Canon name. It was the high-end Canon body that had 50 megapixel sensor. Someone may be able to tell me in the chat later. So that had 50 megapixel, I think. So now they probably do have to up the game if they want to maintain this race into megapixels. So there's a rumor that there's going to be an EOS R camera announced. It's going to be their high-end model. It's saying would launch a new high-end EOS R camera in September, October. This is a wild guess, but I know that Sony has rushed the launch of the previous a7rIV after Nikon had launched the D850. So they're saying now that Canon, there's rumors in the Canon market will be releasing a 70 megapixel high-end mirrorless. Well, let's hope that Canon do a good job, because I just read the figures on about their sales, and the sales were pretty terrible. I think they were down another 20%. Sony actually didn't do very well either, but the thing is they did better than what Canon have done. Canon are losing, I think it was 18% the year before, 20% this year, or some ridiculous figure like that. So they're in trouble. You can't keep doing that for too long, and eventually something has to give. So it's going to be interesting. So whether Canon have finally realised that they're going to have to produce something that is meaningful, something that is not cannibalised, or, well, not cannibalised, something that is not crippled by the things that they've done inside the camera, like not giving you 4K 24p, giving you ridiculous 1.8 crops, things like that. So are they finally going to wake up? I'm not sure, but if they don't, they're in serious trouble. But it's interesting that they're talking now about this 70 megapixel Canon camera that's going to be coming out. And I thought, wow, when I first saw that, I thought, wow, you know, where does this end? It's getting a bit crazy. So let us know what you think about that in the chat. I'd love to know. Then I'm going to open it up to Q&A in a second. Just wanted to talk about this for a second. 1:11:26. So let's go back to this. The Sigma 35 has just been tested. So this is in Sony Alpha Rumors. Have a look at this and read about. I'd love to. Hopefully, I can get a test of this. Hopefully, CR Kennedy and Sigma will look after me, and they'll send me a lens for this. So it should be great if I can get a few of these lenses to test. But basically, Philip Reeve tested this, and there's some interesting things which doesn't surprise me. So a couple of the things which are interesting about this, they're copying Sony in the fact that you're getting, the focus, manual focus and automatic focus, and also your key, what do I call it, your button on there that you can program to IAF or whatever you want to program it to. So that's now on the lens itself. But according to his review, he said, I think we were expecting this lens to be sharp, but neither did I expect it to be such a big improvement over its predecessor, especially being faster, nor did I expect it to be an improvement in terms of bokeh over the other fast Sigma lenses. What I also really enjoy is how close in terms of handling the Sony it is to the Sony GM, and that's what I mean with the focus switch and the button. You can program for different IAF or whatever as well. Before we saw the first pictures of this lens, I always argued it may be good optically, but in the end it would surely miss the focus hold button and the aperture ring. So it's got the aperture ring as well. I don't think Sigma will include either. Oh, how wrong I was, lucky. So it's also got an aperture ring apparently. Oh yeah, it has. So it's got the same aperture ring there as well, which is really nice. So it looks like it's a winner. The only downside looking at this, and he mentions that here, and it's typical if you're dealing with the Sigma lenses, is that so the disadvantages that remain are size and weight. At almost 1.1 kilogram, this is a heavy lens, and it's a really big lens. So that's the thing about this, though. But it's saying, and it says, but Sigma weren't satisfied with making it just a 1.4 lens. They made it a 1.2, and from what I've seen so far, they succeeded. So fantastic. It says, compared to the Canon 1.2 mirrorless lenses, I can also not complain about the price. It seems justified in my opinion. So this is a lens that I would certainly love to try. 35 1.2 will be amazing, and I'd love to have a go at it. I really will, and hopefully I can get a review copy of this lens fairly soon. But how blessed are we now in the Sony marketplace that we're getting all this amazing gear? You know, all these people that were talking about the mount's no good. Well, we've got a 1.2 lens now on here, and what more do you need? This is autofocus 1.2. An 85 1.2 would be lovely, but anyway. So let's go over to Q&A. What are we on? 114. 1450. So let's have a quick Q&A, and then I'm off in my American accent for a coffee. Jim said, my experience is the same and up to 30 by 45 without loss of quality. Yeah, I did canvas size, Jim. I went up to 60-inch canvas. Canvases use slightly less DPI than what a print will, and I could go up to 60 inches, and they look beautiful. Stephen says, got my new 85 1.4 today. Fantastic, Steve. You're going to love that lens. It's beautiful. Hero just got the notification. I love it. Geez, guys, we're 97 thumbs up. If you can, let's make it 100. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your support. So, yeah, sorry, Dion, I didn't bring that up. Sam said, hey, Dave, here just in time for David's closing comments. I love it. Full frame will never compete with medium format, no matter how much they try to convince you. I agree, Photomic, and that's some people just won't admit it, but it's true. Does the Fuji shoot in 422? I don't know about the video aspects of that. Where were we? Where was that? Yeah, I'm not sure if it will shoot 422. I'd have to look at the video specs. The video specs aren't bad in that camera, though. I remember looking at that, but I can't remember the full specs on what it was. Phase 1, yep. Brett said, don't get confused by medium format with full frame cameras, totally different sensors. Yep, they certainly are. Taz said, watch it, and the a7 IV with 4K 60. Sure wish Fujifilm would load new. I'd love to have a loan copy of that camera to try out, Dana. I'd love it. I'd love to try the GFX100. I'd love to try any of the Fuji cameras. They would be amazing to try. Photomix says, here we go with this more megapixel crap. I know, it's just getting crazy, isn't it? Jim said, hide your bank account. I love it. Triple says, oh, Canon is still a thing. I love it. Oh, 5DSR. Thank you, Ario. Yeah, that's the one. I do like the croppability, though. It'll be 70 megapixel, but have the dynamic range of an iPhone. Guys. Oh, that's shocking. What else? Canon lost 64% profit for Q1 2019 compared to Q1 2018. I hope they'll survive. I hope they do too. Remember, and this is what always amazes me when people are so aggressive in some of the sites that you read and stuff with the comments, because if you're a Sony lover, the last thing you would want other companies to do is go out of business. The last thing as a Sony user you should want is Canon to go broke, Nikon to go broke, because innovation would just stop. And we don't want that. Like we want competition. We want Sony to be pushed. There's probably a reason why they haven't released some of these new cameras, because they haven't been pushed enough to do so. So if Sony went out, if Canon went out of business, if Nikon went out of business, we'd be in trouble in the fact that we'd be still stuck with an a7 III in the next 5 years' time. So, you know, it's something you have to think about. Yes, oh no, we're still 97. I thought someone said we made 100. I'm waiting to crack 100 thumbs up. What else have we got? Michael said, your number one choice for 3 primes for doing weddings. Okay, Michael, number one choice now for 3 primes is the 24. It used to be 35, but now I love this. I adore this lens, so I sold the 35. I absolutely adore this lens. So this is one of my favorite lenses now. So the 24 1.4 is number 1. The next prime that I'll say is my Batis. I love the Batis 85. 1.8. Now, sometimes depending on light, I may have to put 4 in. Sorry, Michael. But if light is a real problem and focusing can be a bit of an issue, sometimes if you're really low light, I'll use the 55. Also, if I'm in a very tight environment, I'll use the 55 1.8. But I'd have to say that the 3 favorites are the 24 1.4, the 85 1.8, whether that's the Sony 85 1.8 or the Sony or any 85 lens 1.4 or whatever. And then the next one is the 135. I love this. This lens, honestly, I adore, and I cannot stop shooting with the Sony 135 1.8. I love it. I adore it. This, if I can grab this lens out and I could shoot with it all day, that's what I'd do. So they're the 3 lenses that I would say, Michael. I think I got a donation. Let me just check. Some support to get new gear. Oh, thank you so much, YouTube. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, mate. I do really appreciate it. Where were we? James said, do you use Affinity? No, you know what? And I'm going to talk about that. I might even start doing some videos about it. I am going to start using, I just haven't had time. I am going to start using the iPad Pro I've bought, the 12-inch, to do some full-on editing and also to do some video editing. So I will talk about that as I start to do it. I haven't even opened those apps up yet to learn how to use them. I've got to catch up on a few things. So when I get the time, I'm going to start doing it fully. And I want to sort of share that with you. So I'll let you know how that goes. But yes, that's certainly something that I want to do in the near future, is to talk about using video editing and also still editing on an iPad Pro. So stay tuned. Oreo said, the Sigma 35 1.2, I notice a super heavy vignetting at 1.2 that covers nearly the whole frame. That needs to be tested. The T-stop number might be much higher. Well, I'll have to wait for it. Well, that's why I'd love to review it, Oreo. When is the Sony 100 1.4 coming? Well, we don't know, but we know it is coming. We just don't know yet when. It's just a matter of time. Johnson said, if Canon releases 70 plus, they better come up with lenses that handle that resolution. The one thing you can say about Canon, though, is their glass is very good. I mean, you have to give Canon the kudos for great glass. Jeff says, I'm looking forward to trying the Sigma 14 1.8. I love the Sigma 16mm. That's APS-C. I love it. It is brilliant. And I'd love to try the 56 as well. Michael said 100 1.2 would be nice. Yeah, imagine that. Sammy said, I was the first on the pre-order at my local store. I'm not sure what that was for. What else? You're on tonight, G-Master. I'm not sure what that means. Johnson says, yeah, the 100 1.4G they've talked about would be beautiful. Love the bokeh of the 100 GM, but hate the loss of light. Yeah, that's the problem with the STF lens. It's the loss of light. So, yeah, 100 would be good. When I had the 105 Sigma lens, I loved it. And that does have a big advantage because if you're in a tighter environment, it does make a massive difference. I'm not sure that I would buy that, though, because I'm probably comfortable with what I've got. I'd prefer to buy a wide angle. I would love Sony to bring out a really wide angle, you know, a 12 millimeter, 2.8, something like that. I'd love them to bring that out. And I'm hoping that's probably what I would buy first. Why is Canon doing so poorly? G40 said, well, probably because they're holding features back. The problem with Sony is Canon, they got in too late into mirrorless, and when they did do it, and even the releases that we're releasing now, they're holding back protecting their cinema line, and it's a really flawed thing to do, and it's hurting them badly. Dana said, where were we? The GFX100 video features are very similar to the X-T3. It can output 10-bit 420 footage to the SD card, and 422 footage to an external recorder. That's fantastic. We're still on 97 thumbs up too. We've got 2 down likes. I love it. What else? Thank you so much for the donation, YouTube. Really appreciate it. Keith said, hi, David from Village, Florida. Hi, Keith. Do you ever come to New York City? Yes, I was there a couple of years ago, Hip Hop. I would have loved to have come up in February when I was there, but I just can't. I haven't got the funds to travel to New York from there. But please, if you get the chance, I will be putting out meetings. Gerald and is going to organise some as well. We will be putting out a meeting schedule where we can meet. So if you could make it over to LA, a lot closer for you guys to meet me in LA than it is for me to come up to there. But yeah, I'd love to come back to New York City. I loved it. One of my favourite places. I think I was there 3 years ago. I know, I adored it. I will be coming back soon. Gerald says, I will do some model work with my a7R4 for sure, as well as landscape studios, etc. Casper said, the industry is already dead because of cell phones. I think Sony will be the last man standing when it's done. It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. Oh, Jeff, thank you so much. I missed that. Thank you so much, Jeff, for the donation. Really appreciate that. For a coffee. Thank you so much. Casper said, I've read that one already. Checking the prices for WPPA, $199 for the early bird. Taking the other half... talking to the other half about possibility of joining you guys in February. Thank you so much. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, we're staying in Planet Hollywood for why WPPI is on. And we're also staying, I can't remember, somewhere for 3 days before that as well. We're going to organise shoots. We're going to go out into the desert and stuff like that. Anyone is welcome to come. So if you'd like to, there's no cost. I mean, you know, I'm not going to be doing this for money. So if you would like to join us on some of these shoots, feel free to do it. And we will be having some meetups in LA and also I'm going up to San Francisco as well. So that would be fantastic if you're joining us at WPPI. We certainly will be doing some shoots with all of you guys, that's for sure. And it's my way of giving something back to you guys, and that's what it's all about for me. And you know, and that's why we're not going to be charging anything for anyone. Thanks so much for that donation, Jeff. Raymond says, does the 135 have advantages over the 85 because it's newer? No, well, it's not that it's newer. It is newer. The autofocus particularly is outstanding on that lens. But there's just something about the separation and the depth of field. The 135 is actually the perfect focal length for portraiture. It gives a gorgeous look for portraits on the face and stuff. So there is a difference with that side of it. 85 is a nice portraiture lens, but the 135 is the ultimate portrait lens. But the video autofocus is outstanding. Separation is beautiful. Sharpness is amazing. Color also is amazing. Michael says, I would love for Sony to come with a 14 GM. Yeah, I'd love a wide one as well, Michael. 14 or 12 mil would be great. I agree with you. But I love the 24, 50, 1.4 and the 85 GM and the 135. Yep, we're very similar. What else? Johnson said, I'm dying for a 14 or 16 GM to be released. I'll be buying it tomorrow. Yeah, I'd love one to be released as well. Jim said, David, I'm showing 129 thumbs up. Oh, I'm only showing 97 on mine. It's just I'm looking at the live view there. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I didn't realise. It must be behind on the thing there. And 1 thumbs down. Yeah, I'm showing 2 thumbs down. Wheeler snuck in again. I love it. Yeah, they have this huge Leica section. Oh God, yeah, Leica. Fripple said, David, you won't have a work visa, but you can accept tips if you stay while in the US and do multiple cities being funded by tips. Danny said, David, are you finally going to upgrade from the a7R2? Well, I sold the a7R2, Daddy. So yeah, I sold that deliberately because I thought wasn't sure what will be coming up. Look, at this stage, no, I won't be getting the a7R4. I may in the future though, next year sometime, but there's no hurry. I'm more waiting for a video camera to come out. So that will be my next camera, but I have sold my a7R2 because I knew it would drop in price when the new cameras came out, so I did get rid of it. I wasn't using it much, to be honest, at all. I would just occasionally get it out. But yes, I may get the a7R4. And the advantage is, because I'm not in any hurry, you know, if I wait a few months, it probably will be cheaper anyway. You just want more handheld stabilizers. I love it. I know I've got so many of those. I'm betting David grabs an a7R3 for the low price. Well, I am thinking about that, Johnson. You know what? I never went up to the a7R3 because I didn't think it was such a massive step from the R2. But if that price gets down to this $2,000 US, I may get one, because I think for me, the 40 megapixel probably would be more than enough. I'm not really that fussed about having 60 megapixels, to be honest, because I just never use anything that has that need for that megapixels. So I may grab an R3, and that is something I am thinking about. Yes, so you might be right, Johnson. I'm seeing 131. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. It's just I'm looking over here and it hasn't refreshed and it still says 97. So thank you so much for the support, everyone. He will get it on release day. You watch. I promise, Casper, I will not be getting it on release day. I promise you. Well, that's it. It's just about coffee time. Thank you, everyone, for the donations. Really appreciate that. If you have any questions, leave those down below. I will get back to you straight away. Stay tuned for the Tamron 17-28 review. I've got some beautiful footage. I hope it's beautiful, because I've shot HGL for the first time in that waterfall section. So stay tuned for that. I'm really excited to edit that and share it with you. And as usual, my reviews are going to be more based on usage rather than just talking about the technical side of it. So stay tuned for that as well. I've also got that review coming up for the Wi-Fi thing that I've got, the wireless Wi-Fi coming to your camera. So that review is going to be coming up in the coming days as well. And I've got some other things as well. So some exciting things too. And I've also still got that studio shoot that I want to share with you, with the gel shoot that I did. That's still got to come up as well. I am picking up the Nikon, whatever the camera is on. I don't know which one they're lending me, but I am getting the Nikon on Tuesday with the Tamron 35 1.4 and another Tamron lens. So stay tuned for that review as well. It's going to be fun going back to Fuji for a couple of reviews. So stay tuned for those. I'm hoping that Tamron 35 1.4 lens comes to Sony, because apparently it is a stunning lens. Apart from that, thank you all so much for the support, everyone. And I'll see you all for the next video. Apart from that, have a great weekend, everyone, if I don't see you live. And just love you guys. All right, everyone. It's time for my coffee time. See you, everyone. Catch you later. G'day from down under.